Imagine walking through a forest where every rustle of leaves carries meaning, where ancient oaks debate philosophy through chemical signals, and where the very ground beneath your feet pulses with the collective thoughts of a civilization older than humanity itself. What if trees, those silent sentinels of our planet, developed not just awareness, but genuine sentience and complex societies? This isn't just fantasy when we examine the remarkable intelligence already hidden in our forests. The possibility becomes surprisingly plausible. The biological foundation of forest intelligence. Right now, as you read these words, forests around the world are engaged in conversations we're only beginning to understand. The Wood Wide Web, discovered by forest ecologist Suzanne Simard, reveals that trees communicate through vast underground networks of fungal threads called mycorrhizae. These networks span entire forests, allowing trees to share nutrients, warn each other of insect attacks, and even nurture their offspring. A mother tree can recognize her own seedlings and send them more resources than she provides to strangers. Douglas firs have been observed sending carbon to paper birches during winter months, while the birches return the favor during summer, when their leaves are more active. This isn't random resource distribution. It's targeted, intentional behavior that suggests a level of awareness we're only now beginning to appreciate. But communication and resource sharing are just the beginning. Plants demonstrate remarkable decision-making abilities that challenge our understanding of intelligence without brains. The Venus flytrap counts the number of times trigger hairs are touched before snapping shut, distinguishing between raindrops and actual prey. Mimosa plants learn to ignore repeated harmless stimuli, showing a form of memory. Even more fascinating, forests exhibit collective intelligence, reminiscent of ant colonies or neural networks. When one tree is attacked by insects, it releases chemical signals that prompt neighboring trees to increase their production of defensive compounds. The forest, in essence, thinks and responds as a unified organism. Consider the slime mold, Physarum polycephalum, a single-celled organism without a brain that can solve complex maze problems and recreate efficient network designs that rival human-engineered transportation systems. If consciousness can emerge from such simple beginnings, why not from the infinitely more complex network of a forest? Recent research in plant neurobiology suggests that plants possess the fundamental requirements for information processing. They can sense their environment, integrate multiple signals, store information, and make decisions based on the evolutionary leap from communication to consciousness. How would sentience actually begin in a tree? Perhaps through an accelerated evolution of their existing communication systems, transforming simple chemical signals into complex language networks. This biological leap would involve developing neural networks within the wood itself, creating pathways for thought, feeling, and collective consciousness that go far beyond today's mycorrhizal connections. Picture towering redwood forests, not as silent giants, but as buzzing metropolises. What if the rustle of leaves becomes a whispered conversation, and the sway of branches transforms into communal dance? We're not talking about talking trees from fairy tales. This is about a biological leap toward neural networks within the wood, allowing for thought, feeling, and collective consciousness. Now let's venture into the realm of speculation, grounded in these scientific foundations. Imagine an alternate Earth, where evolutionary pressures pushed forest intelligence beyond mere communication networks toward true individual and collective consciousness. Perhaps it began during a period of extreme climate instability, where survival required not just chemical communication, but genuine planning and abstract thinking. Trees that could anticipate seasonal changes, predict the behavior of herbivores, and coordinate complex defensive strategies would have significant survival advantages. The first glimmers of tree consciousness might have emerged in social species like aspens, which already share root systems and genetic material across vast clones. Picture an aspen grove slowly developing a unified awareness, individual trees becoming like neurons in a vast forest brain. The initial breakthrough could have been temporal awareness, the ability to understand and plan for future events, rather than simply reacting to immediate stimuli. The architecture of arboreal society. As this consciousness evolved, individual trees within networks might have developed distinct personalities and roles. Ancient trees could become the philosophers and historians of forest society, their vast lifespans allowing them to accumulate knowledge across centuries, living libraries rooted deep in history. Younger trees might serve as scouts and messengers, their faster growth and adaptation making them ideal for exploring new territories and gathering information. No longer bound by individual survival, these sentient trees would form intricate societies built on massive, interconnected root systems, acting as biological data networks, sharing knowledge and experiences across generations. Think of these root systems as nature's internet, vast underground networks processing and distributing information across entire forest ecosystems. Their architecture would be utterly organic, interwoven branches forming natural shelters, sunlight filtering canopies creating communal spaces that function as meeting halls, and sophisticated nutrient exchange systems acting as internal highways connecting every member of the community. What would their social hierarchy look like? Perhaps based on age and wisdom, with ancient elders acting as decision-makers rooted deep in history. Different species could develop specialized cognitive functions, perhaps oaks becoming the strategic planners with their deep taproot connections to groundwater information, while birches serve as the rapid response communicators with their extensive surface root networks. What fascinating debates might emerge among these arboreal minds? Trees living for centuries or millennia would develop philosophical perspectives utterly alien to short-lived creatures like ourselves. They might contemplate existence on geological timescales, viewing the rise and fall of animal civilizations as brief, flickering moments. Their concept of individuality might be fundamentally different from ours. While humans struggle with the boundaries between self and other, sentient trees might exist in a state of voluntary collective consciousness. The philosophy of photosynthesis. What would a tree society value? Not speed or consumption like human civilization, but perhaps patience, growth, and the slow, deliberate unfolding of time. Their religion might revolve around the sun, the source of all energy, the great photosynthesis that sustains them. Their gods could be the ancient star trees, those primordial giants radiating wisdom across the forest network like cosmic lighthouses. What would be their ultimate goal? To spread life, to grow, to create a grand, interconnected biome across the entire planet, reaching for the stars. This vision would drive them not toward conquest, but toward cultivation, transforming barren landscapes into thriving ecosystems, nurturing biodiversity, and creating a living planet that pulses with interconnected consciousness. Imagine ancient redwood councils, towering canopies serving as meeting halls, where millennium-old trees debate policy through cascades of chemical signals. These wouldn't be silent giants, but buzzing centers of intellectual activity. The rustle of leaves would carry philosophical arguments, and the synchronized swaying of branches would represent collective decision-making processes that span decades or centuries. The human-tree interface, coexistence, and conflict. But even in this utopian vision of forest society, conflicts would inevitably arise. What happens when one grove's expansion threatens another's resources? How would tree societies handle the equivalent of crime? Perhaps a rogue tree that hoards nutrients, or fails to contribute defensive chemicals when the forest is under attack. The resolution mechanisms could be as alien as they are elegant. Rather than punishment, forest justice might involve rehabilitation through enforced connection. A selfish tree could be overwhelmed with community consciousness until it redevelops social cooperation instincts. How would humanity react to a world where trees aren't just resources, but intelligent beings? Would it be awe, fear, or a desperate struggle for dominance? We'd explore unprecedented ethical dilemmas. Harvesting wood, clearing forests for development. Even breathing in the oxygen they produce would suddenly be loaded with moral weight. Every paper product, every wooden building, every cleared field would represent a potential atrocity against sentient life. Could a true symbiosis form? Imagine human cities built around tree societies, with mutual respect and a shared understanding of ecological balance. Urban planning would become diplomacy, with human architects negotiating with forest planners to create integrated communities where both species thrive. We might develop translation technologies to communicate across the species barrier, creating the first truly interspecies civilization in Earth's history. The relationship between sentient trees and other species would create endlessly complex scenarios. Would enlightened forests choose to domesticate certain animals, offering them food and shelter in exchange for services like seed dispersal or pest control? Imagine symbiotic relationships where trees provide birds with not just nesting sites, but actual communication. Perhaps recruiting avian partners to serve as their eyes and voices in the animal world. Evolutionary implications and planetary consciousness. What would be the relationship if these tree civilizations encountered human society? Would they view us as destructive parasites, beneficial symbionts, or potential partners in planetary stewardship? The power dynamics would be utterly unlike anything in human history. We'd be dealing with beings that could literally reshape landscapes, control weather patterns through coordinated transpiration, and coordinate responses across continents through their root networks. The evolutionary pressures that could drive such consciousness are not as far-fetched as they might initially seem. Climate change already forces trees to make increasingly complex decisions about resource allocation, growth patterns, and reproduction timing. In a world where environmental conditions change rapidly and unpredictably, the trees that could think strategically rather than just react instinctively would have enormous survival advantages. As we stand at the edge of unprecedented environmental change on our own planet, perhaps the emergence of true forest intelligence isn't just possible. It might be inevitable. The vast networks already connecting our forests possess the basic architecture of consciousness. They process information, make decisions, and demonstrate memory and learning. Lessons from the canopy. Wisdom for humanity. Looking back at their hypothetical evolution, what lessons could humanity learn from a tree society? Their patience, interconnectedness, and profound respect for the delicate balance of life could serve as a blueprint for our own survival in a changing world. Their resilience, their ability to weather storms and adapt could be a roadmap for building sustainable civilizations that think in terms of geological time rather than quarterly profits. These speculations raise profound questions about the nature of consciousness itself. If trees can develop sentience and society, what does that tell us about intelligence as a universal property of complex systems? Are we witnessing the early stages of forest consciousness in our own world? The mycorrhizal networks, the chemical communications, the resource sharing. Could these be the equivalent of primitive nervous systems in early animal evolution? The implications extend far beyond biology into philosophy, ethics, and our understanding of our place in the natural world. If consciousness can emerge from networks of communicating organisms, what other forms of awareness might already exist around us, operating on timescales and through mechanisms we've never considered? The forest is already watching, already thinking, already making decisions that affect our planet's future. This isn't just a fantasy. It's a thought experiment, challenging our anthropocentric view, urging us to reconsider the intelligence that surrounds us and the profound possibilities of life beyond our own. As we face our own existential challenges as a species, perhaps the wisdom of hypothetical tree civilizations, their patience, their interconnectedness, their long-term thinking, might guide us toward a more sustainable and conscious future. The question isn't whether trees could develop consciousness. It's whether we're ready to recognize the intelligence that may already surround us, ancient and patient, in every forest on Earth. What wild evolutionary scenarios capture your imagination? Share your thoughts about where consciousness might emerge next in our natural world, and tell me what other impossible biological futures you'd love to explore together.